Hi, this is Attorney Carrier, and it's Saturday afternoon, and I'm live. This is a repeat of the presentation I just made in Spanish on a 601A and 601 waivers, as well as 212 waivers. And that's a lot. So it was really long, and I'm not sure I really like it, but I'm leaving it up because it had some good information, and we gave the new codes and so for the week, so that was good. The 601A and the 601 waivers are waivers for folks who have either been deported, who are outside the country, who are inside the country, who want to adjust, either adjust their status or apply for immigrant status, but are ineligible, right? Who have either a bar or a ban, or who are ineligible for some reason. For example, the very common example is someone who maybe came in over the southern border a while back, has been living in the United States, or whenever they came over. But they came over without inspection, right? They walked over the border. We see a lot of that. That happens a lot. So, and maybe they've lived here for a really long time, and during that time they got married to a U.S. citizen, or they married somebody who was from their home country, and that person became a U.S. citizen because someone petitioned for them, a family member or whatever, and they've become a U.S. citizen, and now they want to adjust their status. And they're living in the United States. Okay, this is for people who are in the United States. And those people need a 601A waiver because they were never inspected when they came in. That's basic. That's like sort of the bottom line, basic, fundamental meat and potatoes. Now, they have to go outside the country to adjust they have to go outside the country to get processed, their green card process. And that's a problem because generally speaking, people who arrived in the United States and were inspected and then married a U.S. citizen, even if they overstayed there, right, even if they overstayed their visa, can adjust status because they were inspected on the way in. That's also barring, do they need another waiver? Were they charged with a crime? There's a lot of other reasons why you might need a waiver. There are a lot of other waivers you might need. But specifically with regard to adjusting your status, you can't do it even if you're married to a U.S. citizen and you're here in this country, if you came over and you weren't inspected. Now, sometimes people are inspected and they don't even know that they were inspected, and that's sort of an analysis that you can do with us, actually. But again, that's one of the reasons people think they need one, maybe they don't need one. One of the reasons why we always recommend that you have a consultation with an immigration attorney. I obviously recommend that you have a consultation with me, but there are a lot of immigration attorneys. And one of the things that I read on these message boards or that people say to me all the time was, I didn't think what my attorney was telling me was correct. And can I, like a second opinion? And I think people should feel free to seek that. Like, you might have an attorney that's perfectly fine, and you might perfectly like them, but you're like, oh, I'm not sure. Come talk to us. We charge $250 for a consultation, which seems like a lot of money, but in fact, it can save you lots and lots more money than $250 by making sure that you're taking the right path, using the right forms, and that someone is actually helping you. Someone who is licensed to do that is actually helping you. So anyway, if you are not inspected, then you might need a waiver, a waiver because you're ineligible to adjust your status. So what will happen is you will apply for your spouse will apply for you to adjust your status, and you'll fill out the 601A waiver, which is a 21-page document with a bunch of information. That's not particularly difficult, but there's also a declaration. And one of the underlying things is, why would it be an extreme hardship if you were not allowed to stay with your family, if you were not allowed to come back into the country right away after your interview at your local consulate, right? What's the reason why? And I think this is where a lot of people are into trouble, because they're like, oh, well, because I can't be away from my parents, or I can't be away from my children, or my children don't speak the language where they're going, and it would just be terrible, and I can't be apart from my partner, that's, I'm trying to break up my family, don't do that. And and while that is true, right, it would be tragedy. I mean, family separation is always tragic. it's really not enough. And so, sometimes people have terrible things that are going on in their lives. That someone has a disease that can only be treated here in the United States, and that it's so rare that we're the only place that this is some universities working on here, and you're a patient in a clinical trial or something like that, and you have to be present, right? That's sort of the big, of course, reason. That's one reason you would write it down, and probably it would probably be enough. Most people don't have that big reason, but people do have several other reasons why their presence in the United States is imperative to the survival of their family and U.S. citizen members of their family, and why it would be extreme hardship for the U.S. citizen members of the family, right, to be without that person. And it can be a lot of reasons, and it can be a combination of reasons. And that's why we think it's important to talk to people and find out what their actual story is, so that we can see where we can layer the different issues in order to show that it would be an extreme hardship on the U.S. citizen members of the family if the individual who is seeking to immigrate to the United States was found to be ineligible and had a bar or a ban once they left the country. And that's the 601A, right? And so we don't want you leaving the country until we're pretty sure that that's going to happen, right? Because once you get out, they'll let you out, but they won't let you back in without that 601A waiver. And that is something that needs to be prepared, and it's very complicated, and because it's complicated because every case is individual. And while every case is individual, no matter whether you need a 601A waiver or not, this is very much something that we want to tailor to each individual family and each individual situation. And then the 601 without the A, the 601, is for people who are not in the country, right? So, and generally people, that happens when someone's been deported, and they want to come back in. And those people often need both a 601A, a 601, no A, a 601 and a 212 waiver, all right, in order to be able to come in before the end of their 5-year, 10-year, 20-year permanent bar, all right. And again, those cases are very individualized, and we would certainly recommend that you have a consultation with an attorney, immigration attorney. Immigration is really specific, and I have been an attorney for a very long time, and I practice in other areas of the law as well. And when I opened my own practice, I stopped doing everything other than immigration. That's all I did. And the reason is because it's complicated, and it's a sort of specific type of law, and if you don't do it all day, every day, it can be tricky. It can be very tricky. It's tricky. I do it all day, every day, and it's tricky. It's based on a statute. It's based on statute, and it's like tax law. Like, I'm not going to try and, I can do my taxes, and I probably do your taxes, but I'm not going to try and get you out of a tax problem, because even if I read the statute, I wouldn't know what to do. So it's important, if you're looking for an attorney, if you're looking for some help, that you find somebody, I think, this is my opinion, that you find somebody who is actually doing immigration and pretty much specializing in that, or that firm is specializing in immigration, or they have an immigration department that only does immigration. Whoever you're working with should only be doing that. That's what I think. I don't know. I also think immigration and family law kind of go together well. But, and I have background in family law as well, and so sometimes people with divorces and that kind of thing, there's an overlap. But I actually send the divorce work out. And I actually, at the beginning, I didn't do that, and now I do. I do the immigration portion, and I understand the divorce work, and so I can tailor what we need in the family court. But I actually have someone who's doing family law full-time, handle the family law part of the process. So, but today, today we're talking about waivers. If you've been deported, you probably have a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, or permanent ban, that's worth having a consultation with someone to figure out what the ban is and what you want to do about it. Whether you want to just, like, have you been out of the country? I mean, has the person been out of the country for, 4.5, years, and so we got 5 months to go, and when it's not going to be a problem anymore because it's sort of that period has run? Or are we looking at someone who has a permanent ban or a 20-year ban and they were deported 2 weeks ago, right? So what is, what's the situation, and what can be done on this end to undo the issue, maybe reduce the amount of time that the bar is put on for, or, maybe reduce the bar if there's been a mistake, if there's been an error, or also whether or not, what the 601 can do for you as well as the 212. And usually that's a combination of those two that go together. And that is all processed in the home country. So the person has gone to, back to their home country, and that whole thing will be processed through the consulate. Now, right now, if that's something you're looking at right now, the consulates are just reopening, right? So everybody's just starting to reopen. USCIS here in this country is just starting to reopen. So even the 601A that's filed here, they've been receiving applications, but they're a little bit behind. So they were a little behind before, and now they're a little more behind, I think. But they are doing, I think they're really trying to make sure that they get up to speed and start processing those claims. So the 601, so the key thing to remember is that if you have been here in this country and you are married to a U.S. citizen, but you never fixed your papers, or you want to arrange your papers, that there is a possibility, and you know that you would have to leave the country, you don't want to leave the country because you're afraid you won't get back, there is that 601A waiver, right? And if you're already out of the country, you've been deported, and you have a ban of a certain number of years, that there is the 601 waiver and the 212 waiver that you may be eligible for, depending on your circumstances, in order to be reunited with your family. And that the hardship that you can show is something that's very important to make sure you're making your best presentation when you submit that paperwork to USCIS. And really, it requires, people are calling in with some individual questions, but if you don't have an individual question for me right now, it's really important that you are looking at that type of a situation. It's really pretty important to have an individualized consultation with an attorney. I would recommend that you do it with me. We're going to give you a new code today, which is, the code is 601 waiver. And that will get you $100 off the initial consultation, which is $250. And so we're reducing it by $100. So it's only $150. That's for an hour of my time. That's pretty good. It's a pretty good rate. And that's a good time to really ask all of your questions and for us to do an analysis of what it is that you actually need in terms of your 601A, 601, 212 waiver, whether you need waiver, whether you don't need a waiver, and how to proceed going forward. Making sure that you're not separated from your loved one if it's not necessary. And then, so I think that's really where this starts, is with an analysis by someone who does this as their primary business. If you have any questions, I'm going to be on the 781-422-8430 right after I get off this live. It's a conference called an Uber conference line, and I'll be on there to answer individual questions for a little while, and it will give you a text once you ring in. It'll send me a text, and I can pick up, and we can have a conversation about your specific case. And then if you need an individual consultation with me, we can arrange for that too, and you can take advantage of the code 601 waiver, which will get you a discount of $100 on that consultation and 10% off of your bill. In general, if you decide to hire us. Again, my number is 413-736-1700. My name is Christina Carrier, and I'm an immigration attorney. You can visit our website at www.christinapcarrier.com. If you like our page, be sure to like our page. Like our page because it makes me happy. And also, you need to like our page and use the code. So like the page, use the 601A waiver, save some money, 601 waiver code, and save some money. All right, so we will be back next week. We'll be talking about, I'll probably collect your questions. People have called and left questions on my answer machine, so I'll probably be addressing those. Also, still addressing, obviously, any kind of questions about the 601 waivers, either in English or Spanish. We also have Punjabi, Hindi, and Bangla language capacity, so if you need any of those languages, let us know. And if you speak another language, and there's someone who can help you speak to me on the phone or come to a teleconference or something like that, I'm happy to work with that person as well, and then we can see about getting a more formalized translation going forward if we decide to work together. All right, so have a great weekend, and remember that all hope is not lost. Even if you have been deported from the United States, there are waivers that you may be eligible for, and we can certainly figure that out for you. All right, take care. Bye-bye.